What's up, guys? Alex here, back at you with another episode of How To. I'm kind of scrunching in the video here because I'm going to need the camera real close in like 2 seconds, and I didn't want to just like bring it back and forth and back and forth. We're going to take a look at how to service a Die Hyper 2 reg. Obviously, all the DMs prior to, what was it, DM9 had a Hyper, no, DM7 had a Hyper 2, because DM8 had Hyper 3, I believe. So DM7, 6, 5, 4, and even some DM3s, depending on how old it is, came stock with a Hyper 2. And then obviously the Hyper 2 regulator was a very, very popular upgrade and reg to put on a lot of guns that didn't have regs that were as good, i.e. ions. Or just like if you were building guns, like building shockers or something like that. It was just a really, really popular reg, and there's tons of them out there, and a lot of people use them. So I'm going to show you how to take it apart and service one. So the camera's already in, so excuse that you're not going to be able to see my face here, except for like my chin. It's kind of weird. What you are going to need is some grease. May or may not need a pick. Obviously some kind of rag or something like that. I'm actually going to swap and use this one. A Hyper 2 reg. You were going to need a 3/8 Allen wrench, a 5/16 Allen wrench, and a 3/16 Allen wrench. So right off the bat, we're going to take the biggest Allen wrench, the 3/8, and put it right through the top, and you'll find where that fits. And then take the second biggest one, the 5/16 Allen wrench, put it right in the bottom of the Hyper 2, just like that, and turn them away from each other. And if you do that, the bottom, kind of little, the bottom of the regulator, the little cap on the bottom that holds the swivel on, will come right off. So you can go ahead and just like pull the swivel off like that. And the top of the regulator, if you just hold on to the rest of it and unscrew, you can actually take the Allen wrench out at this point, the top of the regulator will come off like so. So you're left with that, and the top, and the swivel / middle, or whatever you want to call it, and the little bottom cap. For the swivel and the bottom cap and the top, just go ahead and wipe those down. Grease, grime, dirt, all that kind of stuff. Make sure you get the insides. Make sure those are nice and clean. The bottom, not super important, but clean it. Might as well have nice clean stuff. And the top as well, just clean off any excess crap or anything that's built up in there. Make sure it's nice and clean. With the top one, you're going to want to check the O-ring that's sitting right there. You're going to want to check that one. That's going to seal. And you're going to want to check the O-ring right at the top there. That actually goes up into the gun, because that's a fairly important seal as well. There are no seals on either of these, so these you can actually just take and kind of put aside. And now that the top is nice and clean, you make sure check those O-rings. You can actually put that aside as well. And so we are left with this body. I'm going to wipe off this section that the swivel actually swivels around. You're going to want to check 2 O-rings on. I'm sorry that this is a black Hyper 2. This is the only one I grabbed. You're going to want to check O-rings right here and right here. Make sure there's no damage, nicks, or cuts in them, because those will make it so you get a leak out of the swivel. So if those are good, what you're going to want to do is the velocity adjustment right here. This is where you're going to take the 3/16 Allen wrench, and you're just going to unscrew it all the way until it comes out, like so. You're going to be left with this brass piece with an O-ring right there, and what looks like a little hockey puck in there. So with that, check the hockey puck. We all refer to them as hockey pucks here. That's why I'm saying it. Maybe you're in like the South or something really warm where you don't have hockey, but we call them hockey pucks. If it's really severely damaged, it should have like a ring indent on there, and that's from the top hat. The piston thing that's in here. That's totally normal, but if it's really severe, like it's a very deep cut or it's damaged, you're going to want to replace it. How you get it out is you just take a pick, just stab into it and lift it out. And if you don't have one, just go to your local service shop. They're going to have the reg seats, and they'll be able to swap it out for you. But other than that, just clean it off. Make sure this O-ring down here is good. No nicks, no cuts. Make sure it's nice and clean. If it is, you can go ahead and put this little brass piece aside. So now, if you just take that smaller Allen key that you had that you just unscrewed the brass piece with, go ahead and put it down right where it used to be. And be very careful. You're going to want to do this like on a table or something. I'm going to do it. You'll see. Just kind of push and lift the body. There we go. Got all of them up. And the piston with all the shims will fall right out. So right off the bat, I'm going to clean out the inside of this real quick. Get all that extra grease and grime out of there. And you can go ahead and put this hollow body aside. So now you're left with a piston and a bunch of shims. You can go ahead and take those shims off because I'm going to tell you exactly how to put those back on in what order. So you take the piston, wipe off the piston, get all that nasty crap off there. Old grease, grime, dirt, I don't know, trees. I've seen goldfish come back in our rental guns sometimes. Make sure there's no goldfish in there. Skittles too. Don't want any Skittles in your Hyper 2. Make sure that's all nice and clean. Check out this O-ring that's right on the top of the piston here. Make sure it's all good. And if it is, we can go ahead and actually just put a touch of grease on it so we can just put it away and deal with it later. So I'm going to put some grease on it. You're going to want to do this just like you do bolt systems and stuff like that. So go ahead and take that and run it all the way around. Just like so. You can see grease filled up all the cracks in between the O-ring and the actual metal. But you can still see the color of it, but you can still see the grease as well. That's good. Put that aside. All these shims that came out, go ahead, wipe those down because they're going to be all nasty and greasy. These particular ones are not that bad, but go ahead and wipe all those down. So as you're looking at these shims, you'll notice that these shims are cupped like that. So there is a specific order that you need these shims to go in, or else your Hyper 2 will not work correctly, and I will show you how to do it right now. So, shims are all nice and clean. Take your piston. Take your first shim. If you're holding your piston like this, take a shim. They're very slightly cupped, so you will have to kind of look at it. Take your shim, put cup side down. So the cup side is pointed down just like that. And go ahead and put that on just like that. So the rest of your shims, you should have an even number at this point. If you take them, make sure the cups are kind of facing in towards each other. So what you have is a shim like that and a shim like that. So you end up with this little kind of cake of shims, I guess. Technically it's like a spring stack. But you want to make sure so that your shims, the cups, they do that. So you should have 1, 2, 3, you should have 4 pairs. So what you want to do is go ahead, make your little shim spring cakes, and go ahead and put them on like that. I'm trying to make the camera focus here. There you go. Put them on like that. So do that with the remaining set. Again, you should have an even number of shims. If you don't, you've got problems because your Die Hyper 2 is missing parts. So if you do that with the rest of the shims, oh god, I'm throwing shims, and put them on, you should end up with something that looks like that. Nice and neat, organized. At this point, take your body, take your piston with the shim stack on it, your spring stack, whatever you want to call it. Don't turn it upside down because then they're all just going to fall off. And right back into the reg body. And you're going to kind of have to fish this thing around, and eventually the piston stem will find that hole that's down there and it'll seat, and you can just push it in. So you end up with that. So at this point you can actually take the top and screw it back on. Again, you want to take that 3/8 Allen wrench, give that a nice snug fit. Doesn't have to be super tight. Hand tight's just fine. Put a touch of grease on these 2 O-rings that are here so that your swivel is nice and smooth and it's not leaking all over the place. And you can actually see the grease because it's white grease on a black body at this point. So there's a smaller section of the swivel. Obviously the wider section goes up, smaller section goes down. You can just go ahead and put that on. Doesn't matter where it goes, it rotates anyway. So before we put the bottom on, I'm going to put a touch of grease on your little brass adjustment piece down here. And go ahead, put that in right where you got it, and screw it all the way back in. I believe stock output for Hyper 2. Obviously, the output pressure for Hyper 2 is going to be dependent on the gun that they're using. I believe stock is 5 whole turns out. And at this point, you can take your little bottom piece and screw it back on. I'm actually just going to take the Allen wrench, your 5/16 Allen wrench, screw that on. Your swivel should be still nice and smooth, but nothing's going to come apart. And there you go. You have a completely serviced Hyper 2 reg. And obviously you need to adjust the output pressure based on what gun you're using it on. But that's it. That's how you service your Hyper 2 reg. I hope you learned something about the video. If you didn't, if you already knew how to do this, I don't know why you watched this in the first place. But that's pretty much it. I hope you liked it. Hit that like button if you did. It really helps out the channel. And if you're brand new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. You'll get notifications for when I put up videos in the near future, or basically ever. Welcome. I hope you liked it. And that's pretty much it for today's video, guys. I will see you next time.